So we are recording week 12 of R795 to the cloud, part one. In part one, I'm just going to review some writing tips and points and also go through a little bit about the syllabus and what's left in the class first. We only have a few weeks left in here for meeting times. We have this week, normal time. We're going to only be an hour and a half. We'll be done by 7:30 tonight. Next week, Mena Ju, my former advisee and colleague, will join us, but she's requested a start time of 5 p.m. Eastern, which for Chris might be 3 p.m. In New Mexico, I'm thinking.
Yes.
So apologies on that. We'll record it. It'll be short. It'll be just 1 hour next week from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern time. 1/2 hour of Mena talking about, and myself talking about early career advice. And then we're going to present our AERA paper to anyone who wants to stay for that, just to have a practice. It's brand new research, just been published about what research happened in online learning during the pandemic. It's kind of interesting, I think. The week after that's meetings of 1-to-1, I believe. And then after that will be the final presentations. I'm going to ask that everyone do a final presentation of some kind. Could be very short, could be a half minute, could be 5 minutes, no more than 10 minutes, but probably, shorter than that. But I guess when I say no more than 10 minutes, if you take 11 or 12, it's okay, but try and keep it to 5 or 6 or so. So that's that. Any comments about the syllabus or things that are due coming up?
I don't have any comment. I guess
I know Chris is wondering about assignment 7. Anyone who's an EDD student in here or is done with assignment 7. The PhD students have not turned in assignment 7 because it's not due yet for them. Or at least I think it's coming due, or it has, anyways, with extensions. So let me show you my workspace and some more tips before our guests come in tonight. So here we have it. Well, that's Mena who will come in next week. So this was my workspace. What a mess. Until I cleaned it up last summer with 17 suitcases to the recycling center. And so I try and keep, I have a hydraulic desk, which shows going up and down, which helps for my productivity. The one I'm working at right now is a hand lifted manual. That one's a hydraulic, but it enables me to work differently and have different spaces that I can work from. And I do go outside from time to time. I used to do that more. Sculpted keyboard. Here's the thing with keyboards, it's interesting is you can get little numbers to stick on the keyboards and you don't have to pay $50 or $70 a keyboard. You can just buy for $1 or $2 the little stick on with the numbers on them. So anyways, as you see, I burned through keyboard keys. That was my office. There's my daughter there when she was younger. And, if I need, there might be refreshments. That's my second desk, which doesn't exist there anymore, and so forth. Now, this is the new and improved. As you can see, much more functional or much more sane, I guess. I have 6 calendars on the wall, so that only shows 5. I currently have 6 or 7. I have some shooting off towards the clock, so I can actually monitor what I'm working on by day, by week, by month, and by a 6-month span. So I can look at the sidewall and say, what am I going to get done here this month? What am I going to get done in the coming months? So it's a good way to prioritize things. It's a good way to think about what's coming up, what I have to do. Today, I have to turn in, as Chris knows, or others may have said, to turn in a grant that's due. Paula attended earlier today where I mentioned that. I had a grant due yesterday. I have a grant due kind of tonight. So it's been kind of hectic. I'm actually surprised I'm still talking. That was my office space. Actually, it is. I use my pool table to sort through articles that I'm reading. This is my basement man cave and so forth. That's the cleaned up version. It was a mess. It was there's my bookshelf. And then when I go outside, I can sit and look at the river down below, a little creek down below, and read books and read dissertations and whatnot. But it's my space. Everyone has to have a space for their work. I like also using Panera at times, Starbucks at times, the Graduate Hotel Cafe at times, and so forth. There's some colleagues of mine who, one of them, the guy on the left there is my writing mentor, Brian J. Ford. He wrote his most recent book on dinosaurs being aquatic creatures. His book before that, he's had books on the future of food. He's had books on secret weapons of Nazi Germany. He was the head of Mensa in the UK. Very, very interesting guy. Brian J. Ford, put a J. He had his own game show in the UK. He was, as I said, the head of Mensa, the world's smartest people. He was the head of Mensa in the UK. He gives keynotes on cruise ships. That's who my mentor is. So find someone who can be a mentor. The guy on the right there is a alum of IST. He was the IST keynote this year. If you were at the IST conference, you might recognize Michael Thomas. He and I ran the Chicago Marathon together 20 years ago. So, find colleagues. So you can have, as I said, your office, your space, as I showed my office space, and from messy desk days to, current days. So you can have your spaces for work, and that can change. But you also need, to tap in with your colleagues and get some encouragement from them, and so forth. So let's see. Some additional writing advice I may have gone through earlier. Plan out days in your calendar. Say no to things that don't fit within the scope of what you want to do. In the past day, I have had an invite to China, Hangzhou, an invite to some other Turkey, from a former student of mine. Invites will come all the time. If you're going to be successful at writing, you have to prioritize. You have to take a look at the calendar again that was in my office. I showed this earlier. So all the calendars on the wall there, those are all my planning documents, right? So we have to think about, what's ahead of us, and then track your progress. I keep little notes in my pocket and I track my progress on different things, and I write down what I'm going to work on next and what I haven't gotten done. I look at my CV from time to time. I look at the articles that are in review. I look at the articles that are about to be submitted. I just look at the list. I kind of get a sense in my head of what's in the process, what do I have coming up, and when might I find the time to do them? Also, what I might have currently in review. I also review what's been published. So I kind of take a 360 view of things to kind of get a sense of overarching, what have I been doing or working on? So it's not just tunnel vision and just focused on this particular paper or project. I try and every once in a while just sit back and say, what are all the projects in my bandwidth right now, and which one should I prioritize? If you are constantly doing one thing at a time without thinking about the big picture, it can be kind of depressing, and you might not think you're making progress, but progress can be in a very small way. Progress might be writing the limitations section of your dissertation. Progress could be something like just as simple as writing to someone who's doing research similar to you and getting their most recent articles. Now, on my desktop, and some of these things I may have said earlier this semester, on my desktop, I have something called a work file. In that work file, I have months, every month of the year in it, so I can know what particular projects I worked on each month. And I also have a file on my desktop of publications by year. So as you get older, all of you will be publishing some things. You'll want to save those publications by year. And I actually have another file where I save the drafts of different documents by month. And so I know in particular months what I was working on each month, and I can always go back and take a look at that. I have from 2005 or 6 or so, a file called work file. And now it's 2023. So I have 18 years in a folder that has everything that I worked on by year. It's something that I do. You might not find that to be beneficial to you. So I said, save articles by year. I also save on my desktop, I call things to read, articles to read, and then I index them by topic area, like AI in education is exploding now, ChatGPT. That's one of the grants I'm working on today, trying to get that done. It might be VR and AR, might be K-12 school reform. It might be something else. So I have a whole bunch of topics, and then every time I come across an article, I put them in that file. And if you're planning to be a professor someday, some of you are, maybe Hoijong will go back to Korea or in US, you'll want to review those kinds of things. Have articles published by you, have articles you read by topic. So when you go to teach a new course, you can just filter through all those things on the desktop and find what you need. I also read or listen to audiobooks to get new ideas for my writing, constantly trying to do that. As I mentioned earlier, I use Collins Thesaurus to get new words. I learn new words all the time. Try and change your work environments and that kind of thing, if possible. Find the tools that will work for you, whether it's Zoom or some other synchronous tool like this, whether you're using Google Documents or Word. Most students today are moving to Google Documents for planning things out. I tend to work with my teams using Google Documents until we get near the final version. Then we convert everything to Word, and we do all the final changes like we're doing now in a grant we have to submit tonight. We convert it to Word. Yeah, I've said a couple of these things already. Mark things in your planner and all that. I've kind of said these things before. So let me go back and see if there's a couple of things I haven't said in here. So one thing that I've been kind of successful in publishing is, maybe Maina and I will go through some of this next time, but lately, special issues, trying to find calls for papers in a special issue is sometimes can get you published a little faster, even though the timeline looks like it's going to take a while. So Online Learning Journal, I've recently published a special issue of it, and Maina and I next time will present our AERA paper in our most recent Online Learning Journal special issue. We've published in 3 special issues of the Online Learning Journal. Most recently, I did a review of the research. I did a special issue on reviewing the research in online learning with Florence Martin at NC State and Vanessa Denon, my former student at the University of Florida State. So Online Learning Journal had a year out. We started working on it maybe a year and a half before actually the issue came out this March. Sometimes you can jump in like right now in March or April of 2023 and still get something published by the end of the year. Right now, I'm working with the British Journal of EdTech with a student who studied online proctoring, and they have a special issue on it. Right now, we're working on Distance Education Journal for the research I'm doing on young children, teenagers learning from MOOCs in Nepal. Both those will come out before the end of the year. So special issues can maybe get you frustrated at times, but once you make the first cut, they'll sort out the proposals, and they're usually short proposals of like 400 words or 1,000 words. And if they don't take yours, well, you just move on. If they do take your proposal, you have to then write the full paper. There's no guarantee that they'll take the whole paper, but the chances are really good. You've moved from like a 1 in 5 chance to a 1 in 2 chance. So making the first cut is important on a special issue, on anything like that. So I would recommend writing something short, submitting it to the person writing the special issue, and just taking a chance. That being said, don't submit to any journal, because there's many journals that aren't high quality. And just this week, Science has deleted about 50 different journals from their list of Scopus or high-tier kinds of journals because they were not quality journals, let's say. So be careful when you're invited for anything. any invite. Ask somebody else what they would recommend. Ask them their advice and so forth. There's good opportunities out there. There are some, I forget what the name of it is, it's predator journals. There are predator journals out there, lots of them. And some journals are just slow. Contacting the editor, as I've said before in here, is extremely important at times, just to get them to say, oh, we're about ready to review that. We're going to review that, or it's in review for 6 months and we'll get it back in a month. Just contacting the editor and getting an update, not right away, not every month, but maybe every few months. And that sometimes will get them to act on your paper in a roundabout manner. And that happened with this journal, Asia Pacific Journal of Ed. Hejong, one of the journals is from Singapore that I use, it sounds like, and one's from Korea, from Seoul National. And they are quality. It's a tier 1 SSCI, but it can be slow. It can be slow. And sometimes, in fact, it happened to me 3 weeks ago. Sometimes you have to accept a smaller tier journal. So I had one paper since 2018 with a student from Language Ed, looking at MOOCs in Language Ed. And finally, we just said, let's try an easier journal. We went to Contemporary Ed Tech, got it reviewed. They liked it. It's published. Didn't take long. It's not a top tier journal, but they have a great review board and it's open access. So you can share it with anyone. So try and find outlets that fit the context for you. If you're having troubles publishing, you might not want to go with a top tier journal. You can go with a second tier journal. Sometimes you go to a conference and the conference likes your paper and they ask you to write a journal article, and that's good too. That's important too. And that's happened for me a couple of times. So sometimes you can be invited, and the more well-known you are, the more likely to be invited. So your advisors will be invited. They might ask you to help and come along with them on whatever it is. That's some people at a conference. Sometimes you try and pick a journal you've never published in, or you've always wanted to go in, or that your colleagues and read a lot, that the field of IST or learning design technologies, they love tech trends, they love ETR&D. Well, right now, for the record, ETR&D is slow. And my friends are the editors, so I can say that. They've if you want to get something published fast, you might think twice about ETR&D. Tech trends, okay, but it's not a tier 1 journal. So which kind of journals today are publishing faster than other journals? That's really hard to say, but I'm having good luck with Distance Education, which is a tier 1 journal. If they don't like it, they'll tell you right away. And so they reject an awful lot of papers, but they also have a kind of semi-fast process. The Canadian Journal of Learning with Technology is a good journal, open access, but that journal is not SSCI, but could be someday. But that tends to be a pretty fast journal. The Online Learning Journal is also open access. It's not SSCI, but it is Scopus, and someday soon, it's probably going to be SSCI. I've had good luck with Online Learning Journal. Sometimes, though, they have a queue that can take more than a year. And that's why 3 of my most recent articles with them have been through special issues. 1 or 2 have not been. So those are a couple of the journals out there that I will kind of recommend. Interactive learning environments, don't select that journal because it's really slow. My East Asia colleagues love the journal because it's SSCI and they can get promotions and bonuses and things like that. But I'd actually recommend that you avoid interactive learning environments until they get their act together. Right now, they have after they accept it, which could take a year, it can be published online first, but then take another year to come out in print, another 2 years to come out in print. They're almost 2 years behind. So that's a dilemma. Back in my early days as an assistant professor, I was going to do a special issue of this one, and then they didn't want all Indiana University articles, so we end up doing a book together. back in before some of you were born, 1998. Some journals, you wait, and then it's all published just like that. And you're like, what happened? So sometimes the journal editors, the publishers themselves have to edit all the papers in that issue. And once all of them are edited, then it can come out. So it's just, sometimes it's real tricky figuring all this out. Sometimes, again, you just have to see that your data you collected fit that journal or that special issue. Pay attention to how it's a match or not a match, I guess, if you will.
Dr. Bonk, I have a question.
Yeah,
Speaking
sure.
of journal, what is the difference between a special issue and just a regular issue?
So good. So sometimes the journal realizes that there's a trend that's happening that they're not covering sufficiently well. Like in the case of British Journal of EdTech, it was online proctoring and security and privacy of student privacy data. So I had a dissertation last week where a student defended looking at online proctoring, and we fit the call. So the journals oftentimes they'll publish 4 journals, 4 issues, and sometimes 1 issue every year will be a special issue. And that's what the editor will want, or the publisher themselves, like Routledge or Taylor and Francis or Wiley, or say they'll ask the editors, can you make a call for, we want this topic published. So the next one I'm doing is for internet and higher education. We're going to do a special issue on instructor professional development online. So if anyone's doing research on online instructor development for teaching online, you should submit for our special issue. The call will be coming out in about a month. So, and also journals are looking for people to be the editors of calls, okay? So it can be advantageous for you to volunteer to be the editor. And Paula might say, I want to be the editor. And she gets 2 of her friends to help her edit the special issue. This is a way to get your name out there. Now, they won't just pick anybody randomly off the streets. You have to have a CV and, you have to have a reputation that you build. So I would recommend, as a young early career person, to get on a special issue with more senior people or your advisor or other kind of folks, so that you can have an early career success, right? Hejang, did that answer?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and so ETR&D had one. We did one a couple of years ago. Again, Florence Martin and Vanessa Denon and I did one on systematic reviews of the research on emerging technologies and learning environments. And ETR&D is very expensive, very expensive. It's almost $200 euro. So it's like over 200 in USD. And they don't give you free copies when it's done. So I wanted to buy copies for all my friends. But AECT headquarters made a deal with them and got copies for $15. So I bought 100 or 200 copies of the special issue of ETR&D, and I gave them away at AERA and AECT and sent them to all my friends. So, and we also did with this one, we put a beginning like a preface, and we put a ending like a closing. We made it almost like a book. And now my new one, I may have sent you, it looks like a book cover on it. We put our own cover on it so you can turn a special issue into something fancy. And we got permission from Online Learning Journal last week to take the new special issue of the research, systematic reviews of the research and online learning, and make it look more professional, if you will. So, so there's different things. This journal in New Zealand is not the top, but it's not bad. It's from the Flexible Learning Network, the FLANS people, they call themselves. And I had an article in it. It's open access. It's been cited a lot in it. So I gave a keynote in New Zealand. They asked me to write. write up the keynote in effect. So that was a way, and we got about 3 minutes left here before the guests are going to come in. But this is a way sometimes, there's Dabe. So Dabe, welcome, Dabe. So that was a way, again, those are the kinds of journals, ETR&D, it's not open access. Computer assisted learning, not open access. New Horizons, adult ed, not open access. Interactive learning environments, now, a lot of the tier 1 journals are not open access. Tech Trends is not. Distance Ed is not. This one is. It's not a high-level journal. It's Journal of Learning for Development about third world countries, what's happening in and around the world. Contemporary Ed Tech, not a high-level journal. It is open access. So there are some journals out there. Asia Pacific Journal of Ed, no. Online Learning Journal, open access. Canadian Journal, open access. This is a good one, not SSCI, but a high quality one. I really like this journal. They're very responsive. It might be up in Athabasca, Canada. Asia Pacific Journal, not open access. Top tier journal, very slow, only a few issues a year. TQR, this is for the quality report. It is open access. It's sort of okay journal. British Journal, not open access, very hard to get in. IRODL, this is high-level journal. It's open access. So this is where you want to get, but they're very strict now. They only publish things where you're looking at learning impact. If you're not looking at learning impact, they will reject you right away. And it'll come back, it's called a desk rejection, right? All these students here are former IST people, except for Anissa Sari on the right. She's still dissertating with me, but we published in there. I published several things, 7,000 word max. If you're over 7,000, they will reject it. But when the revisions happen, you can go way over 7,000 words. You can write whatever they're asking you in the revisions, often you can include that kind of thing. So a couple last things here. Journal of Computing in Higher Ed. The Journal of Computing in Higher Ed sometimes is really slow and sometimes it's pretty fast. This is a one that's hard to figure out. I like this journal. I like the editor. She was a guest in this class. We're in R622 last fall. She's a good person, a good journal, but sometimes it's notoriously slow. And the most recent, they just rejected me. So, I've published in it. Yet I can get rejected just like you can, anyone can. And so this is a kind of in between, not a definite yes, but I would recommend it.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So let me stop there. So another one. This is a Turkish journal. There are 2 Turkish journals. One's TOJDE, Turkish Online Journal of Distance Ed. That one you can publish in without being a member. The other one you cannot. It's an open access journal, but it's not a high quality journal. And it tends not to have as strict a review process. We picked this journal when we were having problems publishing it in other venues. So I think I will stop there and just point out, again, there are many possible journals that you can go in. Did we lose Yol Dabe? He was here a second. Oh, there he is. I see you. Okay. I am going to stop the recording here. Paula, Tina, Hoijang, or Chris, or Karen, any questions for me before I stop the recording?
Don't have any.
Okay. All right. I will stop the recording for week 12, part 1 on April